and give you a brief synopsis of where we're at. I went back and I pulled two documents as my Bibles. This one, state-by-state overviews, which was August 2012, and then the one from APCO in reference to their little survey that they did for state communication training. I'll test that alongside of a map, and I'll show you that showing the states in different colors based upon certain criteria. And I only looked at very specific parameters, meaning that there had to be a state law, and I had to find it. I wanted to see the actual statute before I counted it. Was there no law, a law requiring minimum telecommunicator standard, law requiring EMD, or finally a law requiring both minimum and EMD? And those were the quantifiers. And again, I had to find the law before I counted it. And I've reached out to a couple of people just to make sure. Secondly, is I pulled the communication training people, so APCO, PowerPhone, NAED, and did a side-by-side comparison of those. And that was my basis for the broad topics. And then I added the states that I knew very well: Tennessee, Kentucky, things that I had really solid curriculums on, not just a law but a curriculum, and started defining those out. And that's where the spreadsheet came from. The spreadsheet only includes states and programs that I have specific curriculums. I couldn't be very broad on some of those. If I included states that had very broad curriculums, then we would have a spreadsheet 100 miles long and nothing new on it. So when I did a side-by-side comparison of those, I went about 15, 20 states maybe. Once the map started coalescing, I could see a little better where I was at. I also included things such as, do they have an hourly requirement in the statute? Meaning, is there a specific set? And I broke those down in 0 to 40, 40 to 120, and then over 120 hours. And that's, again, open to interpretation, because you can say I have 40 hours of classroom and 300 hours on hand. I usually count classroom time. The last column that I want to just give to you in a map is a verification column. And the way I termed that, and I will do this for you, but I want to read it, is that no verification was needed, meaning I found the law and I have a printed stack of them, thousands of them. Secondly is that I need verification of the law, so I found where it was a reference to it, but I could not find the actual code, so I need the code. Third is I need a verification of the hours or the syllabus that's required in the law. So if it says required 16 hours public safety, there was no syllabus, so I have no idea what the topics were. The last one needs verification of the law and the hours both. Makes sense, combination. And the last one was I didn't have it completed. I just couldn't find anything about it. And we reach out to those folks on the committee. So future, the next steps I think that we should be looking at is involvement from the committee. And what I thought is we would take this between the several of us and polish it up to make sure it shows what's intended to show. It shows the data that we have congealed together, and it shows some very specific topics that need to be in training. Secondly, we need to start looking at having the committee validate this depending upon the state they live in. And we need to be very finite about how we tell them this. It has to be by your statute, not by your training program, but by your statute, because we want to fall back on these are the laws that are already in place. And lastly, we need to start thinking about the next step. Do we want to start assigning hours? And if so, do we want to assign hours based upon a aggregate maybe of the topics, so the main topics in that spreadsheet, such as interpersonal communications, radio technology, blah blah blah, or do we want to get granular down to the topics of subtopic A, B, C, D, so many hours each? My recommendation is you stick with the broad. I think it'll be easier to accept if we're going to do hours. That's where I'm at. Feel free to give me an email. I'm going to continue hashing some of this out. Again, this is pretty draft. the documentation is good. Long term, what I would like to do on the map is once we get a little better feel of it, we can publish it out to the web really easily. We have a enterprise level GIS person here. We can publish that out. I thought we would put hyperlinks in the actual map, so you click on your state and then hyperlinks to your law or the documentation that we pulled. And I printed off the majority of every one of those to make sure that we had some type of formal documentation. The last column I want to add to the spreadsheet are the takeaways from the CIF. So TIE, send me that document. And I will add those in there, and hopefully maybe by the middle of next week we'll have a fairly concise Excel document, and then I'm going to start running some metrics on it. I'm going to start having the data arranged that shows weighted importance maybe on the number of times the topic is shown. So if interpersonal communications in everybody's, then it's a pretty heavyweight topic. But if NCIC is a very low topic, then maybe that gets a lower score, and we'll start doing some weighted metrics on those. And maybe we can start defining out our next process steps for the committee, so we can start giving out things for people to do. Alright, so reply back. You don't have to do an email if you don't want to. You can do a video. Alright, talk to y'all later. Bye.